Welcome. You are about to take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition show. For the next hour, allow her to prepare you in becoming a magnet for a profound love-infused relationship by identifying and focusing on solutions through love. Awaken the light within and let your essence shine. And now, here's Deborah Beauvais on Love by Intuition, all part of the Dream Vision 7 radio network.
Welcome, everyone. Bonjour, mes amis. And yes, here I am, as I say, Deborah Beauvais, owner and founder of the Dream Vision 7 radio network, TV network as well. And we are, if you've just tuned in for the very first time, we're a Boston-based syndicated internet radio station with every bell and whistle there is for listening wherever you are, in the car, home, with your apps, any country, any state. You can hear this show and all our shows on Dream Vision 7. And we are proud to be the media partner for the Omega Institute in Rhinebeck, New York. Well, this is a live show, and I'm giving out the number. People can call in, ask questions, give a comment. We have a phenomenal guest. Bob is in the house, so he'll answer the call and put you through. The number is 833-220-1200. Again, 833-220-1200. Well, we are honored to have Cyndi Dale. She's an internationally renowned author, speaker, healer, and business consultant, and the author of 27 books on energy medicine, which I did not know, intuition, and spirituality. She has worked with over 70,000 clients, presented hundreds of seminars and workshops across the Americas, also Russia, England, Wales, Amsterdam, and many other countries. She's a favored teacher and healer for China, leading in-person and online classes, and she is published in over 17 languages. She has a number of books, as I just said. One of them is The Subtle Body, an encyclopedia, which I think the book we're talking about tonight is the encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia of your energetic anatomy, the winner of 4 international recognized publisher awards. We are going to be talking about energy healing for trauma, stress, and chronic illness. Uncover and transform the subtle energies that are causing your greatest hardships. So welcome to the show, Cyndi.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here. And 27 books, that is a lot of books, isn't it? I probably could have stopped at 20 and been just fine.
You know, you can feel your energy, just your voice when connecting to call in. But I have to say that I was not aware of the extensive knowledge that was coming from you. You are a rock star. You are.
Thank you.
You are.
I love energy. I love working with energy. I like studying the biology of the body, spirituality, how those two come together. And so I think it's sort of natural that I turn around and write books that are sort of cookbooks for energy healing. I mean, not that I would ever say that I would write a real cookbook, and my children would say, don't even let her in the kitchen.
So when did this all start? Like, when did you awaken to a higher purpose, and then from there, I mean, what happened in your life? Did you experience something that woke you up?
I think there were a couple points. I was one of those kids, Deborah, who could see spirits, hear ghosts. I saw colors around my parents, and I would often gauge my behavior by what color was coming off of mom or dad. If mom was, really red, I knew I was going to get in trouble, so I hightailed it. If dad would come home from work and he was this sort of bright yellow, I thought, well, he's in a sort of happy mood. But that muddy yellow, he would go for the martini, and again, just grumpy, so you stayed away. So I didn't think of it as a higher gift. I thought of it as just how the world works, how I worked. But I shut all that down when I was about 12 or 13. I just wanted to be gone. My family, as so many of our families, was more than dysfunctional. And I told God, I'm done. I'm going to die. I told my family, I'm done. And I actually did lose about 20 pounds in 2 or 3 days. I got really sick. And I had a near-death experience, but let's just put it in context of other people's really wonderful, sacred life-death experiences. I'm leaving. I can look down at the body, and it was just this poor, skinny little body. And, I think, well, you know what, who wants to be in there? So I'm drifting up, going into the universe, and this voice says, you have to go back. And I am all Norwegian. We are stubborn, if anything. And I said, no. And the voice said, no, you have to go back. And I said, no. And the voice said, you're going back because you haven't done anything. So I was just kind of slammed back into the body. I'm sure it was gentle, but I was mad about it. I didn't see a white light. I didn't have that great awakening that so many people had. I was just mad. So I shut my gifts down, and honestly, they only started to open again and propel me into this whole what is psychic and what is energy and what is healing when I went to therapy when I was about 20 as a very unhappy young woman. And the therapist said, well, you're not only OCD and, anorexic and bulimic and all these other things, but I think you're also psychic. And the word changed my life because it perked my interest. Like, what does that mean? What is that? And I was so fortunate that I was able to then start traveling around the world and learn about, shamanism and healing and energy and spirit and different ways to look at the world than my typical, the white Wonder Bread Lutheran family I grew up in. So I would say, those are many points of change. First, my stubbornness, and then second, a therapist sort of suggesting, there's something in you might want to look for. And that sent me off my pursuit.
Wow. But yet the knowledge that comes from you, that emanates in this book, Energy Healing for Trauma, Stress, and Chronic Illness, the depths it goes is comprehensive in detail about, how the body works, how the soul works, how it just is amazing. So what we're going to talk about tonight is fear, but I also want to get into there's so many other things like the COVID, but fear is over everything. And then racism, that basically is fear, and not being educated in that realm. So, but let's start off with why did you write this book when you already had the encyclopedia? For the what compelled you to write this comprehensive book?
Well, that's a good question, and it is comprehensive because I do talk about biology and chemistry and stress and the polyvagal system and all these neat buzzwords in the stress busting community, and spirit and energy. I've worked with clients now for almost 30 years, and I've seen the same issues as I'm sure many of us do, even inside of ourselves, over and over again. Nearly everybody who works with me who has anything from an autoimmune disease to a challenge with money to relationship issues or addictions or sadness is really dealing with trauma. And which to me is stress that doesn't clear. It's a challenge that doesn't leave what they call the subtle, or the invisible, as well as the physical body. And so I wanted to write this book for years. And for some reason, the timing just worked out for me to start writing it about 2 years ago and to put into it everything I've learned. about the anatomy, about what stress does to us, about what trauma is, and to share the techniques I've developed using the subtle energies. How do you release your soul? How do you know if it's a past life issue? What do you do with energies that aren't your own? And so my publisher was just willing to let me write it a couple years ago. And what's most interesting is I got the proofs during April this year when we were in COVID shutdown. And my editor said, if you do this really quick, you can write several additional pages about COVID. So I think there was a divine timing. You talk about divine love and intuition.
Yes.
There was an absolute divine timing I did not see, of course, when I was, hey, this is on my mind. I want to help people. And not everybody has the kind of money it takes to see therapists or people like me or even doctors. So I thought, how much can I put into one volume to help people help to heal themselves or other people?
Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's just amazing. I think everyone should have a copy. Every family should have a copy of this and study it, because it really shows through of how we can heal that trauma. So let's start with, we all know the benefits of fear. We talk about that a lot. But, how can we, as you say, respect the fear and have the right actions? How do we channel the fear so that we can function and really, serve others, which is what we're all here to do through our own unique gifts? How do we do that?
Yeah, well, I think it's important, Deborah, to first start to differentiate when we can between, a healthy fear, the one we have to respect, and an unhealthy fear, which is actually quite disrespectful of us if you really look at it. So Healthy fear is survival fear. It's that fear that comes up that says, wait a minute, you're in danger, you need to move forward, backward, or to the side in order to be safe. And we're biologically programmed for healthy fear. That it's that fear that, we're cavemen and women way back then, and here's the saber-toothed tiger. You really don't want to sit around when it's stalking you. It's just silly. And so when we get gripped by a fear, and we can pretty quickly perceive a reason to be scared, like, oh my gosh, this person's making fun of me, or I have this really bad feeling in the grocery store, and we're still trying to be COVID protected, and I'm just hit with this fear. I maybe need to kind of listen to that. I may need to remove myself from that person, or maybe I get out of the grocery store. I go to a different aisle. So healthy fear is really smart because it preserves us. I think where we get stuck is it's sometimes hard to figure out when we're feeling an unhealthy fear rather than a healthy fear.
And you mentioned, which is so true, that we can feel other energies, and if they're fearful, we can take that on. But you go further into the fear where whatever that fear is of that person, we're just not taking the energy of it, but we're actually taking in the core of it.
Exactly.
More of that, and about, I want to get into the chords and such, but I might be jumping ahead. But with the COVID and everything that's happening, you can even feel the energies if you never leave your home. But speak to that a bit, please.
Yes, I will. So unhealthy fear, there's many causes of it. It can be our own trauma, old trauma. It can be ancestors' fears that stir up in us. But especially today, the most significant sort of batch of unhealthy fear comes from other people, because fear spreads. It comes down to understanding energy. Energy, everything's made out of energy, a feeling, a thought, a computer, quantum particles, everything's energy. But there's two types. There's physical, which is more or less concrete, but most energy is subtle. It's the stuff we can't see. It's the stuff we can't prove all the time. It's inaudible, except we sense it. We know it's there. And it's the subtle energy that spreads from person to person. I mean, and not only do we go, oh, I'm empathic and I can tell this person's scared, but subtle energy holds charges. So if I'm near a person who's really scared, literally the charge of fear, that sort of subtle charge of fear, it's almost like, think of it as like an electrical particle, right? Can jump from them to me, and I now have it. I don't have to be in the room. I can be just thinking in my house. I can be turning on the television and watching the news. I may be thinking about calling a friend, and then boom, they're like electrical particles just jump in me. Maybe my friend is scared, and I'm kind of preempting their fear. I'm feeling it before I even talk to them. I think that's what we most have to watch out for. I think we can catch diseases that way. We can literally catch cold over the phone, which I know is another discussion. But energy, subtle energy, determines physical reality. So if I accept, or somebody sends me and I accept their terror or their fear or their panic, like that's going to become mine unless I learn how to recognize, hey, that's not my feeling, that's not my energy, it's not my job to take care of fear for somebody else.
Right. And so do you suggest that at that moment, recognizing it and then saying to yourself just that, this isn't mine, so that you have compassion for the person that is there or who's involved, but yet you're protecting yourself in the sense that you don't need that, it's not yours, and then let it just move by?
Yes. If it doesn't feel like yours, it's not yours. Okay. And I taught both of my sons a technique that's very simple. I would have them, if they had like an event that happened or a feeling, or they just kind of felt upset about something, I would teach them to just take a couple deep breaths, think of their feet, be in their body, right? Get that sense of being in the body and ask the question, their inner wise self, what percentage of what I'm feeling is mine versus somebody else's? And my boys learned to answer the question. I just did it with my baseball playing son, a few days ago. He was like, Mom, like I have this pain in my shoulder and it scares me. I said, well, what percentage is yours? And he goes, only 20%. It's really not mine. I know, isn't that great? I mean, as we all should be taught to do this. And then from there he just answers himself and lets it go. Yep, and he lets it go. Yep.
Did he hold on to it for a while, though, or was he satisfied? Okay.
He didn't want it. He did not want it. And you can use bells and whistles. I mean, in this field, you can picture white light streaming through you, bringing it back to that person's higher self, because you really don't want to whammy them either.
Right.
But it really, if you recognize it and say, bless them, but this is not mine, it dissipates. It disappears almost immediately.
Yeah, that's great. You also talk about the bubbles. Could you, and I do bubbles for different things, but your bubbles are a little different. Could you talk about those for a little minute?
I would, and we probably do use that word in different ways. I was trying to come up. Well, I was working really hard to describe what happens when somebody is traumatized and they go into shock, and there's this shock bubble that goes around them, and they can get stuck there. You can get traumatized when you're 2, and if the part of you that goes into shock, both, really subtly and physically, is never invited out, doesn't, kind of talk about what happened, that self, that traumatized self, stays in a bubble. I was really trying to find a word that was different than bubble, because bubble seems so delightful. I mean, who doesn't like to blow bubbles? But it looks like a bubble. I mean, psychically, it's a bubble, right?
Right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bubble, and somebody can get stuck in one of these bubbles. It's like a balloon. There's another word, but that's also a wonderful word, so that didn't work either. And, but it's not like they're disempowered in that bubble. Like in there's that wounded self still holding the the challenges, the trauma, developing dysfunctional belief, and sometimes that self gets triggered and can come out and kind of run the show, but then race back to the bubble until we find that self. We love them up. We figure out what happened to them. We help them feel their pain, feel their grief, and release other people's energies, right, and reintegrate. But I think a bubble, I use the word bubble because it looks like bubbles to me.
Yes, I can see that as well. It's good. It's good. And we use other words for different things, too, so it works. Well, we're already up on a break, Cyndi. For those out there listening, if you would like to connect with Cyndi, you can go on her site. Cyndi is CYNDI, Dale, DALE, CyndiDale.com. You must have this book. Unfortunately, I have not read your other books, but everyone, each family on the earth should have this energy healing for trauma, stress, and chronic illness. It's just amazing, and you can find ways to heal yourself in different ways, but all under the energy healing umbrella. So we'll stay with us. We'll be back more with Cyndi Dale.
Experience a different yet profound healing with Reconnective Healing. Includes yet expands beyond any and all known forms of energy healing. The Reconnective Healing spectrum is comprised of the full healing and evolutionary continuum of energy, light, and information. It allows for healings that are not just physical, not just mental, not just emotional, yet go beyond that to bring healing that includes the evolution of your very being and essence. Deborah Beauvais, trained and certified by world-renowned Dr. Eric Pearl, offers appointment hours at Seekonk Family Chiropractic in Seekonk, Massachusetts. For questions or to set up both distance or local sessions, call Deborah at 508-431-1959. Again, 508-431-1959. Or go to lovebyintuition.com. That's lovebyintuition.com.
Take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition Show, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern. Our message is love in the purest form. The light within us all is a guide to recall our beginning, to learn to love self and humankind, and to feel the higher power of our own divinity. To attract love, one needs to be love. Come join us and step into this glorious vibration called love.
After narrowly surviving the attack on Sandy Hook Elementary, first grade teacher Caitlin Roy DeBellis was left searching for answers that would never come. Eventually, she chose to focus on questions that could be answered. How do I make sure this tragedy doesn't define us? How do we get our control back? Those two questions led her to found the 501c3 nonprofit organization Classes for Classes. When gifts poured into their classroom, she decided they would help someone else by paying it forward and being kind. This developed into a social network which allows K-8 classrooms to connect so that every student in the United States can learn these crucial lessons. Classes for Classes' mission is to build students' social-emotional intelligence by connecting them to care. All C4C projects are crowdfunded. Any teacher in the U.S. can visit classesforclasses.org. That's classes, the number 4, classes.org. Sign up today.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
Looking for a fun and relaxing getaway? Omega Rest and Rejuvenation Retreats are a great way to unwind and renew your spirit. You can stretch your body, quiet your mind, and do as much or as little as you choose. Join us in May and we'll waive the daily fees. Located in Rhinebeck, in New York's beautiful Hudson Valley, Omega's natural environment and quiet pace allow for extraordinary experiences to unfold. Learn more at eomega.org or call 877-944-2002. That's 877-944-2002.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we are back. You can call in 833-220-1200. Bob is in the house, and we'll put you through. We are, as you know, or if you're just tuning in now, Cyndi Dale, who is a rock star, as I have said earlier, renowned author, speaker, healer, 27 books, and she is just, she's an encyclopedia of herself. She can, well, let's mention too, which I think is important. She also teaches a certificate-level program at Normandale College in Minneapolis, where adult students can earn accredited certificate in energy medicine. And she also teaches a year-long apprenticeship program. So go on her site, CyndiDale.com, Cyndi, C-Y-N-D-I, Dale, D-A-L-E, all one word, .com. So Cyndi, you know, with the COVID and everything that's happening, many people that have stuffed their fear, and they had their bubbles, but they just didn't pay attention to them and just stuffed it wherever they could, so they didn't have to think or feel about it right now. But with the COVID and people spending time either working or alone in their homes, for mainstream America, a lot of people are feeling things are bubbling up, and the fear is bubbling, and it could be old fears. So to the old fears and how someone could release. And then what do you do with, I'm going on, but what do you do with someone that's not even conscious of what's happening and they're really confused?
Oh, and that last bit of your question is a tough one when people aren't conscious, because it is really easy to think that our fear is all about today. And, you know, we've already talked about it could be other people's energy, and we don't want to deal with that. But whatever's left, that's yours. And much of that's probably going to be old. And so, for instance, if I'm talking to somebody, maybe a client or a friend, the kinds of key questions I ask them are like, does this fear feel too big to be about right now? Or does this fear remind you or about something you went through, or bring up a memory, you know, about some time in which you felt really panicky or alone or lonely or abandoned. And so we can ask ourselves those same questions. You know, if we say, oh, whatever's not mine, I'm letting go, but here I am really scared, then we want to dig deeper. We want to say, you know, is this old? You know, what does this remind me of? When have I felt like this before? So first we want to get that inclination for self or to help somebody else get it that it's old. I think, Deborah, it's kind of calming to know that a fear is old as well, because then you can say, well, maybe just by stepping outside, I'm not going to get killed by the virus, though that's what I'm scared of. Maybe, you know, I remember sometime going to school and coming home with a really bad disease, and that's what I'm remembering. Then once we get some sense of where our bubble self is, the self, you know, in the shock bubble, the one who's really terrified, it helps to kind of differentiate that self, imagine him or her as separated from us. We don't want to throw them away. That's not what I mean. Like, imagine them as their own being. Start talking to them. Let them talk to us. Have them give us their memories. Empathize. That kind of distancing, you know, which is being a bit more of the observer rather than the self in the bubble, is one of the first ways to start working through the old issues.
Right, right. And do you feel like if it's something from another lifetime, past life, or ancestry hundreds of years ago, because that can happen as well, is that easier for you to clear than the present lifetime?
That's a really good question. It often is, because the intensity of the emotions aren't as present and we have some distance. And so sometimes what I find people do is they begin the clearing of trauma, the transformation from trauma, by working first with past lives. I think it's important to work on this life too, okay?
Yeah.
But for instance, I just worked with a client from China this morning, and we've done maybe 8 sessions, which is quite a few, but and the first 2 or 3 we spent doing past lives. Other times when she was rejected by a parent or lost a child or was killed or murdered, and now more lately we're working on this life. And her mother just recently died, which also enabled her to go into a really beautiful, deep place inside of herself and find, parts of her inner children, different inner children that had never received what she needed from her mother. So over the 2 weeks her mother's been dying, she's found these cells, these bubbled cells inside of her. She brings them up. So her ability to be with her dying mother was so grace-filled. She would wash her mother's body. She would sing to her. She would comfort her. And she said, before I released these trapped parts of myself, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I couldn't even have been in the same room as my mother.
Wow. That's incredible, yeah. I mean, there's so much forgiveness when it comes to that point where you can really, instead of seeing your mom, see the real person, the individual person, and what they may have gone through in their lifetime. And that's why their actions are the way they were. But now, you're not in it. You're not looking for forgivenmore from them in that way. It's just a normal forgiveness. It's more comfortable, or you're more at peace with it because you're seeing the rawness of your loved one. Your mom.
There's a clarity. And I was very fortunate that I was the only relative in town. For years and years, my mother died about 1.5 years ago. And it was a good thing because I did my work. I would, she would say something, I would go back and be that 5-year-old. But instead of taking it out on her, I went to therapy. So her last 1.5 years, we had love. I would actually put her in the car and we would go driving. We would go get chocolate malts and French fries. We had the best time. And it's not because my mother did change. I mean, she did evolve, but so did I. And so if we can stop blaming the other, and of course it's never okay to have been victimized. Abuse is not okay. And if we can say my job is to heal the parts of me, whether they be past life, whether they be this life, whether they be adult or child selves. If we take responsibility, sometimes the people around us shift too. And if they don't and they're abusive, then you be practical about it. You stop engaging with them. You do what you need to do to get safe or get your children safe. I mean, there's a lot of common sense that needs to be used and integrated into energy medicine too. But when we release ourselves from these bubbles, we do it exactly the way you're talking. We look at ourselves with love and kindness, and we don't blame that 13-year-old who inside of us who maybe was cutting, where we have shame about that. We go, I understand why you were cutting. Or the past life self who maybe killed their brother. We go, well, that wasn't the best action, all right, and now you have neck pain because you cut him off at the neck. but I get it. So let's work on what led to it. Let's ask forgiveness from the brother soul. There's so many ways to do this dance of love and forgiveness. It does take coming at it with that sense of love, however.
And it takes time. I mean, well, let me ask you, because you do such extensive work with others. As we all know, once we become conscious and we go within and we look at our, the stuff bubbles up, and it's ongoing. It's not that you get to a destination. It goes on as long as we're here on Earth. But with your work, do you, and this is going to be a weird question because what I just said, Do you find even with the extensive work, things can crop up later in life, even if you're ongoing with your work?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a long-term therapy client. I just change therapists every so often. I do 12-step programs. I still do Al-Anon. I still hold myself with the 12 steps, and bring myself back to, here's where I'm at. There's a higher power than me. I turn that over. I take responsibility. I work on my issues. I think it's really, especially because I'm a healer, I think it's extraordinarily vital that I continue to do my therapeutic work. I mean, when I first started therapy as a client, I worked with what they call a family systems therapy, who has you look at your family system, who did what and who was what and how did that happen. Now I work with a spiritual therapist who uses, kind of a spiritual practice. So the bond I'm seeking to evaluate and strengthen now is more between me and my higher power. So I think your flavor changes. The devotion to the path, I don't think it ought to, because it's the path of love. And stuff triggers. I trigger a lot less now than I did 20 years ago. I mean, a lot less. I also know when I do trigger, and I know it's up to me to do something about it, too.
Yeah, I like that answer. I agree with you. So let's. I wanted to ask you with fear and racism. The racism has been here and everywhere, across the board, across the universe for hundreds of years. It's not like it's something new. But the fear from COVID and everything that's going on in this country with the division and the things that haven't been all from the highest good, we feel that, and it almost is overflowing to the point where now this fear and racism is coming up front so we can all actually see it. It doesn't have to be stuffed in a home. It doesn't have to be a situation, because I'm thinking of my own family, the whole extended family. There's still racism there, and it blows my mind. And yet I know it's based in fear and trauma, and that fear is usually a fear of everything. Fear of someone going to harm you, fear of another culture, someone that looks different, someone that acts different. And so what are your thoughts on that fear? And really, from my perspective, you can't change anyone. You can have discussions, but I think the change comes when we start with the kids and teach them unity and embracing all people. But speak to that with the trauma, the fear, because I think of our family, we had trauma as kids, and most of us have embraced that. But there's still a lot of fear, I think, that carries on from that for someone that may not be conscious, and then the fear of everything that's happening, and now we've got all these different cultures, and how do we deal with that? We have to blame someone. We have to, some people have to, instead of looking at themselves, put it all on other cultures. But what I'm going with this. So
I do.
What is your perspective?
Oh, yeah, and it is fear, because who amongst us isn't scared of the unknown or scared of what we can't control? Or let's just take the virus. We can't see it. So we're terrified, most people right now, and we've gone through different stages of this over the last few months, but we're terrified. And if we don't watch ourselves, what we do with terror and lack of control is seek to dominate. We seek to have somebody to control. We seek to be safer or better than other people. And so we've been doing this for thousands of years, as humans. And it's like, well, if I'm going to survive and I'm going to have the resources and I'm going to get the medicines or I'm going to get the hospital beds, this is like how our subconscious whirls, then I have to be better or more deserving than other people. And so we start singling out groups. And that's, one very short story of what's led to all this, kind of racism. Thank goodness it's bubbling up. Thank goodness people who have been, groups that have been, like Black people, have been so severely violated, are speaking, are talking, and bringing it up into the light and saying this isn't, just about sexism. This is about racism. And, the other thing, too, Deborah, I think we know when we're wrong inside, too. I'm saying that because, don't we, when I was a little kid, I was 4 and 5 when we lived in, up to age 6, we lived in Huntsville, Alabama. My dad worked for NASA, and I was on Windover Drive. I remember this vividly. And during that time, there would be horse-drawn hay carts bringing Black people in to the neighborhood where they would work for almost nothing, and then the horse-drawn carts would pick them up, after sundown and bring them out to live near the Green Giant plant in tin shanties. And I remember going, Mom, why? This is wrong. Why don't they have cars? Why are these their houses? I was like a kid, and I knew it was wrong. And my mother, we were from the North, so my mother was able to say this is wrong. But the other people in the neighborhood, the other kids were like, well, this is just how it's done. But I think we all have a universal conscience on the inside. If we could just sink into it and deal with any shame we have about how we've been, right? Whether we've been victimized or the victimizer, we've got to get through that shame to say, this is not right. I'm going to work for what's right.
Right, exactly. We need to take a break. Everyone, don't go away. This is really important conversation. We'll be back in a moment.
Take a journey to a place of the divine love within with Deborah Beauvais on the Love by Intuition show, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern. Our message is love in the purest form. The light within us all is a guide to recall our beginning, to learn to love self and humankind, and to feel the higher power of our own divinity. To attract love, one needs to be love. Come join us and step into this glorious vibration called love.
Are you searching for a way to help create global change? Dream Vision 7 Radio Network's vision is to have an eclectic group of radio hosts dedicated to educating, enlightening, and helping humankind with positive messages and tools that enhance lives using different modalities and programs. If you would like to join our team and help illuminate the universe, call Deborah at 508-226-1723 or Deborah at dreamvision7radio.com.
Delight your kids with an enchanting journey by reading the Paper Doll Kids children's book by Deborah Beauvais and Janine Sullivan. There's even a catchy tune, Kids for Love Song, produced by Bob Sherwood and sung by kids just like yours. The story weaves around 7 paper dolls flying around the world doing good deeds as they bring important attention to our endangered animal friends. There's even a magical ring with a universal message. Kids become interested in service projects, action through compassion, and planting seeds that nurture positive change. The Paper Doll Kids and Kids for Love Song are a production of the Kids for Love Project. Get the book now on Amazon Kindle and the song on CD Baby or iTunes.
Why are we here? How can we be happy? Questions asked from millennials to boomers. Crappy to Happy, Sacred Stories of Transformational Joy answers them using true stories of grit, grace, and love. James Redfield, author of The Celestine Prophecy, wrote in the foreword, "This book is a seminar about emerging truths and offers grounded solutions through the art of the comeback." Dr. Bernie Siegel, a contributing author, wrote, "Bodies die, but spirits and consciousness survive and recycle." So, grab some tissues, open your book, and prepare to cry and laugh till it heals. Crappy to Happy by Reverend Ariel Patricia and Kathleen O'Keefe Canavas. Available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and booksellers worldwide.
It's a child's job to play, to learn, and to have fun. It's an adult's job to keep them safe. Did you know that 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18? Every day, families enter the Children's Advocacy Center because a child's courage to tell someone what happened to them. Keeping our children safe starts with a conversation. This is Michelle Aranger, Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Center. Learn more on how to keep your child safe. Visit cacofbc.org. This message made possible by the Fall River Rotary Club.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we are back. To complete my thought around the fear and racism, and we could talk about this for hours, but from my thinking is if we had the history, the real history in elementary school, teaching the kids the real history of what happened, I believe that would be a step in the right direction, and the kids could go home and hopefully empower their parents if their parents had different views that weren't to the highest good, because fact is fact. But for the people that are, I still have hope for people that are stuck in that fear and racism, even if they are older. But how, what would you say to them? How do they open their hearts to ask the question, does this belief system suit me any longer? Does it serve me or anyone else? Does it make sense?
Well, and that is an excellent question. And I think, and there's a couple points I want to make around it. One is sometimes you can get through to people by asking them to switch sides. Just by, would you be willing for 1 minute to imagine yourself in that other person's shoes? I even do an exercise sometimes in my office where I put 2 chairs across from each other, and I have one client, right? They sit in the chair and they talk at the person that they are denigrating. Then they get up and they sit in that chair and they act as that person and they talk back. So it's very powerful.
I've got the tingles. It's
really powerful.
Incredible.
And I'm going to venture into more spooky territory next, because sometimes I find that the gravity and the intensity of racism as a person is really because of some of the invisible energies in the realm. A story. I worked with a client, very lovely client. He had terminal cancer, like in the throat area. It was told to be terminal. And when he came in to see me, I saw a connection. You had brought up the word cord very, very long ago in the beginning of our time, and I did. I saw like this energetic tube connecting him to what I would call a dark force. It's sort of just this dark energy that has consciousness. And I said, it looks to me like part of what's perpetuating this cancer is a dark force. And I had this feeling of it being like trying to squelch, his belief system. And I thought it was about racism. I just knew it was about racism. And I said, were you ever around racism? And he goes, he was a white man. He said, I grew up in the South in a family in the KKK. And I left because I knew it was wrong. And now I'm writing a book about it. And I said, when did you get the cancer? And he said it was around when I started writing the book. And we cleared it. The cancer went away. But that's also a teaching that sometimes people are gripped by energies that are bigger than them, by their family system or family spooks, or there's that belief that if you're different from your family, you're not going to survive. So it can be very challenging for people to let go of some of these entrenched racial beliefs. And so sometimes I like to help them ask, how would the family treat you if you did change your belief, or if you acted out of your heart? Or do you ever feel like something's gripping you and you want to change your belief system, but it's hard to do? So I sometimes lead in the direction of what's bigger than you, that's sort of trying to force you into what is clearly, not serving the world, not serving your children, not serving, the goodness.
Wow. I loved every word you said. That is, again, powerful to say and think and do it that way. Wow. Thank you. Wow.
I think a lot of people know.
I'm taking it in. I'm taking every word in because that's so powerful to say to someone. Yeah. We have to have you back. There's so much to talk about. I mean, I wanted to get into some of the people you've gone through with their healings. Maureen, Ryan. We have to have you back if you have time, maybe early next year. But before we go, and we're running out of time, can you address making space for change?
Oh, yeah, that's such a beautiful phrase, and sometimes so hard to do, isn't it? If we keep doing the same old, there's not a lot of inner work we're going to do. If we, live in the same room and act the same way and have the same habits, we're not going to create new habits. That applies to our inside self, right, the parts of us that maybe really do need to start recovering from trauma, and our outside selves. I feel like I'm talking about Barney the dinosaur. You have your indoor voice and your outdoor voice, but the concept applies to both. Like if you want to think different and not have fear, how can you create even 5 minutes a day where you don't do fear? If you want to stop eating chocolate cake, what can you change in your environment that helps you do that even for a day? I have a really easy exercise that helps with some of the fear. It's very concrete. I tell people if they're plagued by obsessive thoughts or worries or fears or even, kind of racial beliefs, whatever it might be, to pick up a rock and then say, this rock represents what I want to stop doing. Then set down the rock for a set amount of time. Just say, for an hour, I'm going to walk around without that fear. Or I'm going to walk around without the obsession to eat the chocolate cake. Or I'm going to walk around not hating on a certain group of people. The rules are you have to go pick up the rock again, because otherwise your brain is going to overrule you. But as time goes on, you can set the rock down, more and more often for greater amounts of time. And pretty soon you might not even need the rock.
That's good. Wow. Well, we only have a few minutes, and before we go, what would you like to leave the listeners with? Not that you haven't left. You left like all these nuggets, all these golden nuggets. But I mean, even if you have something happening online, if you have a special course or something going on, what do you want to leave the listeners with, Cyndi?
I do have this really neat course through the Shift Network. We've just done 2 out of 12 classes, but it's not too late to join it. It's on my website. It's called Advanced Radical Energy Medicine. I love it. It's got the most amazing, beautiful people. I would check that out. And my second thing is joy. I think sometimes the best antidote to fear and what grips us is when we make space, make sure you bring a little joy in. I mean, I have things that bring me joy. I love binge watching shows. I don't do it hours a day. I'm working too much. But you know what? If I spend an hour a day watching like some super cool show that I like, it makes me happy. Or if I make my dinner a certain way, I have joy. I run my dogs every day because it brings me joy. So when you're making space, my encouragement is make some space for joy too.
Right, I agree. It is a time, what I've been talking about as of late, it's a time for nurturing the self. And some people have more time than others, but it's time to really nurture yourself from A to Z, whether it's nutrition and food that you're putting in your body or sitting out in nature or taking a big tub bath, whatever it may be. But we really need to not only love ourselves unconditionally, just as we are at the moment, but we need to really instill these things to nurture the soul, nurture the self. So I want to thank you, Cyndi. I got to listen to the show myself because it has so many nuggets.
You're lovely. I'd love to come on again. I love you. This is wonderful what you're bringing to the world.
I love your soul. You have knowledge, enough knowledge for 400 people, all wrapped up in your one self. It's tangible. It's like, wow, wow, wow. So thank you. And everyone out there in the world, as I say, wherever you may be, get the book. What a gift. What a gift for the holidays, or a gift if you're coming together with a few people for Thanksgiving. Bring this book, Energy Healing for Trauma, Stress, and Chronic Illness. Uncover and transform the subtle energies that are causing your greatest hardships. It's needed now. And at the same time, share the show. Share this show. Listen to it again. I'm going to. And pass it along. It might be a phrase. It might be 2 words that may open someone's heart, that brings them joy. And because that's the whole thing, that we're here is to get to know what our gifts are, utilize those gifts into a service, and let that be your business, serving the world. It'll bring joy to you. And just as Cyndi has said, that's the other goal, is to bring the joy, to find the joy, because there's so much here that we're experiencing that we can't experience in any other place other than this particular universe. I mean, this is exciting. We have this opportunity. So with that said, that I could just go on. I wish everyone, and I'm starting this until the holidays are over, I'm wishing that everyone wear their mask and be protective wherever you are, not for yourself if you don't feel that, but for everyone else. And let's be conscious of what we're doing and do it out of love. Do it from a place of love and kindness. Let's elevate that vibration of love so that we can overcome all the heaviness. We can overcome that by lifting and raising the vibration of love. So with that said, everyone out there, get this book. Don't forget CyndiDale.com, CYNDI, Dale, DALE. And she will be back sometime next year, because after these next few months, we're going to need her. So without anything else, until the next time we come together, au revoir.
Are you seeking a clearer path to love? Then tune in to the Love by Intuition show next week. All designed to your highest good. To contact Deborah Beauvais, owner of Empowered Connections, call her at 508-226-1723. That's 508-226-1723. Or link on to lovebyintuition.com. Remember, we are all one, and we are all part of the miracle of love.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.